Episode 119 of Elevation Nation. I hope you all have a smile on your face because we are talking all about positivity, the law of attraction with the one and only Miles Robertson. Now, Miles and I have known each other since I was probably like 15 or 16 years old, and we lost touch for a few years, and recently kind of rekindled the friendship, got back together, and realized how similar our mindsets are. But Miles is even more intense, I would say, than Parker and myself when it comes to the law of attraction, being positive, and really taking control of your mindset. So we are honored that you are joining Elevation Nation tonight, Miles. So welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Miles, I am pumped for this conversation. There's nothing that gets me going more than positivity, law of attraction. Actually, I know before we were talking about a little bit the book, The Secret. My mom got me to read that when I was like in 5th grade, 6th grade, whatever it was. Changed my entire outlook on life. But Elevation Nation, I didn't know Miles before we just met 10 minutes ago, but I was looking at his LinkedIn profile, and his About section read, I'm passionate about bringing out the best in others. My mission in life is to bring people together for the betterment of each other and positively open people's minds to the infinite potential that there is in life. I want to connect with the world in meaningful ways and tell people stories. That sounds like an awesome bio, first of all. And secondly, Miles, this is going to be a great conversation. So excited to meet you and get this thing rolling.
I'm stoked, and I totally forgot that's my bio, but that's totally in line with who I am.
So besides your bio, Miles, for Elevation Nation, we started off with a little elevator pitch. Tell everybody who you are and what you're about.
Who you are and what you're about. All right. I would say that I am a young adult trying to find his way in life who from an early age was interested in consciousness as well as everything related to living your best life and attracting just bliss and positive experiences, positive communities in your life. So quick elevator pitch. I learned meditation when I was 4 years old. My parents met through meditation. I'm currently 26. So I've known how to meditate now for 22 years. I actually spent the past couple of days with my godfather, who taught me how to meditate. He's taught a couple 100,000 people around the world how to meditate, which is a real honor. But I would say that meditation, consciousness, and everything related to having a rich soul, a rich soulful experience, and being able to positively contribute to others is kind of who I am at my essence. And I've had quite a few windy roads and different stories that have had ups and downs and learning moments. But me at my core, I'm here to bring out the best in others, as my bio said, and I see infinite potential pretty much in every experience and every person. I see a problem, I see a solution, and my mind is just always kind of going. So my biggest hobby is learning, and it kind of goes right into how to make the most of life and how does one live the best life they can.
Well, that's amazing. We'll have plenty to talk about with that. And honestly, is your biggest hobby not meditation? It's learning? Can meditation even be a hobby? Is it? It's a way of life?
Meditation is like brushing my teeth. It's something that I just do so consistently. I've done it now for 15 years that it's just every single day I can expect to meditate twice a day at 30 minutes each. So every day for an hour I'm meditating. So that's just part of who I am. And then in terms of like the hobby, I just love learning. And there's so many different topics and so many different things to never be bored. Like life is a gift. There's so many things out there to do and learn.
All right, story time, real quick.
Wait.
Story time. I got to tell my story here. So
I was going to go way back. Okay.
So this is going way back. My first time going over to Miles's house, had a sleepover, the Robertson household. I get a wake up, 6 a.m. Sam, yo, wake up, man. It's time to meditate. I was a freshman and maybe sophomore in high school. Sleepover. I was not introspective and deep like I am now. I was a young whippersnapper. And Miles is so wise beyond his years. This man wakes me up and has me do my first ever meditation with him. And so I can speak firsthand that meditation is in your soul, it's in your DNA, it's in your blood, and also learning is. And I'm glad you picked that hobby, because one of the reasons I wanted to initially have you on the podcast, Miles, was you had a little initiative going last year about reading a book a week for a while. And that really intrigued me and kind of what got your name on our list for the podcast. So I'm sure we'll get into that as well. But Parker, I rudely cut you off to tell that story. You wanted to go way back, you said.
6 a.m. wake-ups for meditation. It's like a football game, getting ready for, you got to go through the running, workout, stretching, this and that. I was going to ask, Miles, 4 years old, you learn how to meditate. How do you teach a 4-year-old how to meditate? 4-year-olds run around. They want this, they want that. They are driven by their emotions. They're not grounded by certain things. What was that like growing up in a household where your parents prioritized meditation so much?
So what it's like is a 4-year-old is just kind of existing. There's not too much thought process behind it. How many memories do I have when I'm 4? Maybe 2 or 3. I do have the memory of actually learning meditation, so that was definitely one of the more profound ones. The style of meditation at 4 years old is a walking meditation because there's so much pent up energy. So you kind of just walk around in a circle. You're given a mantra in the style of meditation that I do, which is transcendental meditation. And that mantra basically allows you to kind of clear your mind and have a focus. Truthfully, at 4 years old, I had no idea what it was. I had no idea what the effect was. It was just something that was kind of instilled in me from a young age and more or less from birth, because my parents met through meditation. But I didn't really pick up on it until I was about 11 or 12 and had somewhat of a sense of self. And at 11 or 12, I could look at my parents and say, wow, they've been doing this for 10, 20. Now they've done it for 40 years. And I look at them and I'm like, this has made such a positive impact on their life 15 years ago. So when they've done it for 25 years, I might as well try this. But as a 4-year-old, it's really hard to kind of discern what's right from wrong. I liked watching the Chicago Bulls and watching Team USA soccer. It was pretty simple existence at 4. But once I kind of developed a little bit more intrigue or interest, then meditation became a huge priority. But I had already had those 7 years of knowing what meditation was from like that event at age 4, learning that technique.
You talk about how maybe you have a few memories. One of your earliest memories is learning how to meditate. But you talk about how when you were 11, 12 years old, you started to really take it seriously or understand why you were doing it. What was that aha moment? Did you have an aha moment when you were like, meditation, this means something. This is important for whatever reason it is. I like it. I want to take it more seriously.
I think I started taking it more seriously after I'd done it for a year, as crazy as that sounds. But I think it was more just the curiosity. It's like, okay, I'm growing up in Chicago. The Blackhawks are in the championship, or they're playing for the Stanley Cup. Maybe I should watch a hockey game. But when I was 11, I was like, okay, this is really interesting. My brother's not doing this. My mom and dad are doing this. They seem to be benefiting tremendously. I might as well try this out. And then I did it one day, felt the effect, and I was like, okay, I'll do this again. My parents usually do this in the morning. They usually do this in the afternoon. I might as well just do it at the same time as them. And then after I had the compounding effect of a year of meditation, it was something that you couldn't remove from my daily habits. And I started to really notice a strong sense of clarity, a strong sense of self, a tremendous amount of confidence, a lot of freedom, very little stress. I know 11, 12-year-olds probably don't have as much stress. Maybe they do now with all the social media or kind of antics that are going and being thrown at them and all the ads. But at 11, 12-year-old, I just wanted to watch basketball. I like Vince Carter and watch TV shows or whatnot. But I think the aha moment was a year later looking back, because when you do your meditation in TM, until you turn 20 years old, you add a minute onto your practice every single year. So at 11 years old, you do it for 11 minutes. At 12 years old, you do it for 12 minutes. At 15, you do it for 15 minutes. If you both were to learn today, you'd do it for 20 minutes and you'd only ever do it for 20 minutes. But I remember when I probably turned 12, I went from 11 to 12 and I was like, oh, wow, I've been meditating now 6 months or a year. And now I've got an extra minute. And those 11 minutes have meant so much to me every single day at age 11. And then once I hit 15, it's like, wow, I get to add another minute. So the aha moment, I think, came about a year after having that consistent practice. And it's very subtle. You don't notice it in the beginning, and then you definitely notice it when you're farther along.
This mentality obviously has been bestowed upon you from your parents, right? And maybe it's not mentality, but it started off as a habit. And I find that super interesting because not that meditation is a religion, but when we look at general, typical, normal society, religious traditions, for lack of a better term, are passed down. And same with like your parental habits, right? So, I go to church every Sunday because my parents do that and they seem happy and they seem in touch with who they are. So I should do it too. And it almost starts, at least when you're a young kid, as this is the quote unquote right thing to do because my parents, who usually when you're a young kid, your parents can't do any wrong, they're doing that and you want to follow in their footsteps. And then you reach this very unique point, and I think, Miles, happened a heck of a lot sooner for you than it does for most young adults, but you have this realization about some of the hard things in life benefiting you. And I think that takes people, a long time, even past their 20s, past their 30s, past their 40s, to realize that sometimes you have to put in some effort into things to reap and see those benefits come out in the long run. So I don't know. I just find that interesting of how this was kind of just built into who Miles Robertson is as a person. And I think that has kind of helped you develop into advancing just from meditation now into other forms of wellness, positivity, and mindset work in addition to just meditation. So I was hoping we could maybe talk a little bit about the retreat you just got back from and learn a little bit about this new form of mentality and medicine that I've honestly never even heard of before, but I should because it's like thousands of years old. So give us a little snippet on that, Miles.
So last week I went to a small town in Iowa, Fairfield, Iowa, and I went to a clinic called the Raj. And the Raj is a premier institution for Ayurvedic medicine. So essentially it's a medicine that's been around for thousands of years. It originates from India, and they have certified doctors all over the world, a lot more so in South India, or like in India and Eastern culture, but in the United States, there's plenty of these doctors as well. So you go in and they basically just read your energy and look at your pulse, and through your pulse and through your eyes and through your skin and through just your overall posture, how you show up, they can tell everything about you. If you're in balance, if you're out of balance, if you're stressed, if you're thinking too much, if you have good digestion, if you're sleeping well, if you have aches in your body, just tons of nuggets and tons of wisdom are showing up in your everyday life. So I went to this clinic, and it's very much like a doctor's check-in, as opposed to you going to your physician and saying, how's my general health? It's how is Sam? How is Parker? And then being able to ask a few questions about your general life, your stress levels, your work, your relationships, whatnot, and then be able to say, okay, you are doing very well. Maybe your digestion's a little poor, and you're too stressed. Let's work on your stress. And then they prescribe a set of different treatments to essentially get you back into balance. And the idea is that when you're in balance and when you have self-awareness and when you can finally hear your inner voice very clear, and when you're able to spend time with yourself and listen to your own thoughts, then you're able to kind of live your best life. So there's so much noise in society. There's so much being thrown at you. There's constant stimulation. The idea is just to bring you back to square one. So it's very much aligned with meditation. So meditation was actually a part of my treatment. I already had been doing that for such a long time that it was just kind of naturally built into my day. But they say, okay, you're going to be doing yoga at this time. You're going to be doing meditation at this time. They give you a full-on diet at the place that I was. So I had vegetarian Indian food every lunch, every dinner, and 3 treatments a day that included a massage, some herbs for digestion, and then you sleep 8, 9, 10 hours a day and have 3-4 hours in the afternoon of free time. So that was essentially the experience. And Ayurvedic wellness, I say, is a very powerful form of ancient wisdom, because it's all just about being balanced and making sure that you're at ease in your body.
When you talk to colleagues, people, friends who are like, what? What is that? What does that mean? Like, how do you describe that to them, the power it has in your life? And honestly, like, you're laughing back because they don't understand the things that you've gone through.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I probably went a little overboard on the explanation, but I essentially, like, you could boil it down to the experience that you have at an Ayurvedic clinic is to bring you back to a level state and relieve all tension in the body, whether it's in your mind with thoughts and stress or in your body with aches and pains or poor digestion. So it's basically bringing you back to a state of feeling good. And the actual process that you go through to do that is meditation and eating right and the massage every day. So the way I describe it to someone else is you go to a retreat or a wellness clinic to allow yourself to have deep rest. And after you have deep rest, then you can then be at your best, think at your best, act at your best, and it'll give you a much greater, deeper experience of life as a whole.
So I want to ask, you walked in to the first day at the Raj, and they took your pulse. They did that initial wellness check to kind of come up with what your activities for the rest of the week, right? What you needed to do. You are light years ahead of most young people our age. Like, whether you admit it or not, I mean, Miles, most people aren't meditating for an hour a day, right? And like, you are one of the chillest, calmest guys I've ever met. When you walked in, could they tell that you keep up more with your mental balance than most other people who are coming in from, working investment banking jobs with 3 phones, smoke a pack of cigarettes a day, and commute 3 hours, right? Like, there's totally different levels. You've been doing the maintenance to stay calm, and so they kind of can pick up on those differences when you walk in.
I think it also is a self-selecting community. So the majority of the people that are already going to a clinic like this have a pretty good balance in their life. So you're probably not seeing the investment banker that smokes 3 packs a day going to one of these clinics. But I've been twice. So
they probably need it more than most, right?
Oh, they would definitely need it more, but they don't even know that it's available because they're just caught up in the game of life, and they are very external. And if you're very external and you don't have a sense of self or an internal voice that you can listen to, you're just going to follow what society's programming is. And it's best when you're following your own programming, not other people's thoughts or beliefs being put on yourself. But to answer your question, when I walked in, I've walked in twice. This past week, I was in a pretty good state. And you saw me recently, Sam, like life has been pretty good this past couple years. I know it's crazy with COVID and whatnot, but I walked in and he said, you're in good shape. Like, you're physically in good shape, you're mentally in good shape. And he said, you're in pretty good balance. And this is big contrast from the first time. The first time I was actually a little messed up, out of balance, a little out of whack, highly stressed. That was in 2020. But this time he said, there's 3 kind of doshas, they call them, which are to balance the different energies. And you want all 3 to more or less be in balance. And he said, your kapha, your pitta, your vata, they're all in balance. And you have good digestion, and you don't have too much stress. You look good. You have a lot of physical energy. He said, you look strong. You must be working out quite a bit. And then he's like, there's one thing that I can tell from your pulse. And this was this time. He said, you probably have physical like aches and pains. And I was like, actually, I've been weightlifting a significant amount the past 6 months, pulled a couple muscles. My aches have been, or my pain, my joints and my muscles have been achy for a little bit. And somehow after 5 days, that completely went out the window. I had no longer have any aches and pains. I don't know how they were able to get rid of any of those muscle pains, but yeah, he did say that I was in a pretty good spot. And the first time I went, you'll probably laugh at this, Sam Parker. I think you'll probably find this humorous. I went March of 2020. I was actually going to go to Israel and Dubai with my friend from boarding school who lives in Germany, and that was March 8th to March 20th, right when the NBA was locking down, right when the world was frozen, right when it was work from home. So I decided not to get trapped in the Middle East on my first visit. So I pivoted, and instead of going to Dubai or going to Israel, I went to the Raj. and I was able to go to Iowa. I spent a week there, and it was me, and this is the funny part, or at least I think it's funny. It was me and 15 other people, about 15, and the other clientele was 100% female, so there was only females, and they were all over the age of 60. Like without a doubt, it was between 60 and 90. That was the other clientele, to the point where some were like, "Oh, I could be your mother," and then some others were like, "Oh, I could be your grandmother." So I'm the only guy there. I'm the only person there under 60, and I'm having just a great experience talking to these wise older women and hearing about their experiences. But we're in vastly different states of life. And back in March 2020, it put me on the best course. And then I think that allowed me to go into a lockdown in like the best state of mind. And I've been riding a positive wave since I went that first time for the past 2 years.
I can't imagine just like what that week was like. Obviously, being with all these people you've never met, very different people that we probably associate ourselves with on a given day. But that sounds amazing. I mean, when you talk about going into the pandemic, into lockdown with a perfect, peace of mind, and you're in balance, like, I definitely was not in balance in any way during that time. I think I put on 20 pounds and was literally just sitting in my backyard, just trying to meditate. But, that's where we started Elevation Nation, right, Sam? Back in the day. So I guess that's a good thing. Miles, I want to talk through the idea of the power of what you're talking about and why it isn't a normal practice in today's day and age. Why aren't more young people reverting to the things that you're talking about? I mean, this is something that is, I did a quick Google search, it's been around for thousands of years, right? And if it's been around that long, it probably works.
Wait, I want to say something on that point, though, before Miles goes into it, just so we can get a little banter going back between the boys here. There are so many amazing things that have been around for thousands of years that our modern day mainstream society takes just longer to come around to it. And I'm going to give a silly example, but sushi. Sushi was like one of the oldest forms of cuisine from Japan, kept them super, super healthy. And the thought of bringing raw fish to the United States was like extremely taboo 50 years ago. They did not eat sushi in the U.S., especially at the level now.
True.
Now look at all the different sushi restaurants, how common it is. So while Parker, I totally appreciate your point, and I agree, Miles, we'll get into it of like, why is there a benefit and why does mainstream not do this more? But it's also like there are so many hidden gems that I think people so quickly put the kibosh on because it seems weird or foreign or old or confusing, yet many people can benefit from some of these things. I'm actually reading a book right now. I'm sure, Miles, you've read this or maybe not, but it's called 10% Happier by Dan Harris. Super interesting book. And right now we're on the topic of just some of the basic principles around Buddhism, which I admit, because I did not take John Camarella's class because I went to Stevenson and not Prospect, I did not get as much info on Buddhism as I would have liked. But there are so many old ancient practices from Buddhism about how the mentality of the human mind is like just eats itself up and goes into crazy rabbit holes. I was like, why don't people think about this stuff more? It's like, oh, headspace and meditation now are becoming cool and common. Same with yoga, right? Like, I don't know if you guys watched any of those crazy cult Netflix documentaries from like the past 50 years about some of those yoga retreat schools.
Like,
that blew up in the 60s. Yes, and exactly. Bikram. Like those blew up in the US in the that whole, flower child hippie era, right? Like that's been going around for thousands of years too. It's like all these things take just like a longer cycle, it seems, to become hip in the US. I don't know. What do you think, Miles?
So you gave the example there, Sam, of yoga, and Parker. Yoga has been around for thousands of years, and yoga took a very long time to be adopted. And then as soon as yoga became widely adopted, it's everywhere. The health benefits are widely documented. The people are realizing it's good for the physical body. Probably not as many people are realizing that yoga started for a mind-body connection. Maybe just now they're thinking it's all body. But yoga is all about being the ultimate person, mentally, physically, etc. And as soon as yoga came, it probably built up slowly, and now has a massive, massive following. So I do think it takes quite a lot of time for these nuggets to be brought worldwide and to like really catch on. But in my opinion, why is this not more popular, and why is it me and a bunch of people in their 60s? I think it's I think it's honestly just because there's so much noise and there's so much information out there, and you're just constantly being bombarded with different information and different programming from news outlets, from how society is more or less functioning, and it just gets lost alongside all the different noise. So if a social media thing comes out and you realize, wow, Snapchat, I can send this message, or wow, Instagram, I can see all of my different friends, or a TikTok video is 8 seconds or however long it is, I could see LeBron James do a funny dance. That's probably more intriguing, and they're built on psychological principles to get you addicted. People are naturally going to gravitate more towards a TikTok than they are towards a book on Buddhism or a book on fill in the blank. So I think our society is more or less, with the technology revolution, getting programmed more and more to be technology addicts as opposed to like seekers or wanderers or adventurers.
I totally understand what you're saying there, and it's like the idea of instant gratification. It's
100%.
We're in the instant gratification day and age, and it probably will get more instant and more instant as we grow older. And I was also thinking, it's hard to meditate. It's hard to be good at yoga. It's hard to be mindful. It's hard. It's difficult. And I think that deters people too. I talk to my sister all the time about meditation. She knows it would be great for her. But she's like, I try and I sit there and I just don't know how to do it. It's hard. It's difficult. I don't know what I'm doing. I keep losing my train of thought. Is that maybe the reason why it's deterring people?
That's a really good point. And I think any good habit takes a longer time to adopt than an easy bad habit. An easy bad habit is easy. You can naturally gravitate towards it. You know you're probably not going to feel a ton of fulfillment from watching a TikTok video, but it's easy. Like you woke up, the first thing you do is check your phone, you're looking at your text message. It's easy to just naturally go like, I'm curious what's going on Instagram or TikTok. Not as easy to decide that you're waking up at 5:30, that the first thing you're going to do is meditate. The second thing you're going to do is go run 5 miles. The third thing you're going to do is have the habit of reading for an hour. And now your morning routine went from 5:30 to 8, and you're well set for a really solid foundation of a day. The easier routes are the common, more comfortable routes to take, but the routes that are more nourishing and fulfilling, you need to really be intentional about those. And when you have the proper intention, or when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Like all of the information is out there, and you'll naturally go and gravitate and find the right content. So I'm not surprised that I'm hearing that your sister is having a tough time meditating. I think that's very common. I had a tough time meditating. I was freaking 11. Like I didn't know what I was doing. And I would just sit there and I'd have thoughts. I'd be like, oh, I wonder what's happening to the girl in my math class. Or, oh, I wonder if the Bulls are playing. Or actually, I started to like South Park. Is that a funny thing? And I have all these random thoughts. And that's not the point of meditation. The point of meditation isn't to get good at meditating. The point of meditation is to get good at life. So even if you have thoughts about South Park, or you have thoughts about the girl in math class, or what you're doing after school, or which cookies you really wanted for dinner or after dinner or dessert snack, none of that really matters. What matters is how you see yourself. And if you give yourself time every day to better yourself, or just give yourself time to rest, you'll become more and more self-aware. And the more self-aware you are, the more you know that, oh, I probably shouldn't eat 5 cookies, or, oh, it's probably better to read a book than it is to watch Netflix for 4 hours continuously. And people know what's good for them. They just don't inherently have the accountability, or they don't have the discipline to just put into place the habits or structure that they need to bring out the best in themselves.
So, Miles, in that last sentence, you just hit upon every aspect of a concept that Parker and I are obsessed with, which is called mental fortitude. So you talked about the self-awareness that you need through meditation and that you gain through
or
meditation.
through anything.
Right? Or through anything, totally. We talked about the vision there that you want for, it's okay to go through all these different thoughts in your day, right? But what do you want? You want to be good at life. And then the accountability, which you just mentioned. And I want to talk a little bit specifically around the vision part. And all three of those, again, to remind Elevation Nation, that all leads to mental fortitude. And that's what comprises mental fortitude. But specifically vision ties us back to something that's really interesting and goes back to the book that Paige Yablon bought Parker when he was in the 5th grade, and one that you told me to read freshman or sophomore year of high school, The Secret. And within that, the law of attraction and positivity, I think, ties perfectly to the vision that you have for your life and mental fortitude. So can we talk a little bit about what the law of attraction and positivity and positive thoughts actually means?
100%. And when that came out, the book came out in, I believe, like 2006, maybe 2008, because I was in middle school. And I watched it for the first time with my parents because there's about 20 different speakers. They all come from different disciplines. A couple of them had come from the meditation background that my parents came from. So they had specifically known a few of the different speakers. So they were like, oh, Marcy's in this clip. Let's go watch this documentary. It'll probably be good. Lo and behold, they had no idea that little 11 or 13-year-old Miles, 12-year-old Miles would watch this and become addicted to the concept, rewatch it 20 times, and then that would become like the foundation of my mindset. So the law of attraction, to just reiterate, I'm sure you guys both already know, is that like attracts like, and that's in every aspect of life. So when thoughts are produced, a thought has a frequency of energy, and that frequency of energy is attracted to experiences, people, places with a similar frequency of energy. And so like would attract like. So the more that you put out thoughts into the world, the more that you're creating your reality or creating your future experiences. If you, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right either way. If you have the belief that you can do something, you'll find the way to go and navigate towards the belief that you have that you can do it, even through all the challenges and obstacles that are there. Or if you have the belief that you can't do it, you'll probably naturally take the easy route, fail, watch TikTok or whatever is the comfortable thing in the day and age that you've grown up or that you're currently in. And the law of attraction is really based on thoughts, but not only thoughts, because thoughts are energy, but emotion is energy. So the way that they were phrasing it that really stuck with me at a young age is the thoughts that you have the most power behind or the most energy or emotion behind are the thoughts that will then continually recreate your future. So if you plant good seeds of thought, if you plant good seeds of energy, good seeds of emotion into your life, then that will basically forecast what your future experiences, your future joy, your future emotions will be from that moment on. And as a young boy, that really heavily affected me. And I think that documentary also kind of clicked me into the idea of meditation too, because it's just more of the idea of self-awareness and being able to hear your thoughts and hear your own inner voice. And the more you can hear your own thoughts or your inner voice, you can kind of create the vision, create the goals, or even know, like, what do you like to do? Oh, if you like to watch football or you're very interested in football, maybe you should have a career as a coach, or maybe you should have a career as a player, or maybe you should have a career as a scout because it's natural for you. But sometimes sports can be an addiction. So maybe you're actually interested in biology and you just naturally are interested in different ecological systems and you want to go check out Australia. Like, there's a lot of ways to just be curious and then naturally gravitate towards what's right for you. But it all starts with hearing your own inner voice. And once you have the ability to hear your own thoughts, then you can create a vision that's compelling. And once you have the vision and the thoughts and the emotions to back the vision, there's no other path that you can go on than going towards your vision.
So, Miles, what happens when life comes and hits you, and something unexpected arises that you probably wouldn't want, or something bad happens, or you're in a bad place of mind. Like, you talk about all this great positivity, all, bringing yourself to thinking good thoughts, good things, putting good energy out into the world. But what happens when the world's pushing bad energy towards you? How do you deal with that?
I think bad energy is a part of life. Like, without bad, you wouldn't have good. So there's the duality. And if you ask most people, typically some of the worst experiences or some of the most painful experiences in their life become the most memorable because they learn the biggest lesson or they grow through it. So I find the painful, troubling experiences that people have, and I've had my fair share. I'm a human. They're actually a net positive in the long run because they're always an ability to grow through it. There's always an ability to learn from the pain that you're in. And it just is another point to allow for deep reflection to occur. So when you have a painful experience, when you're in a low moment, it's like some of the best periods of time to reflect of like, wow, this is painful. I don't enjoy this experience that's happening. And it allows you to think, okay, what would I want? What would I want to get out of this? Where do I want to go? You'll learn the lessons. You'll most likely want to stay away from that type of bad experience, implement whatever habits or beliefs to navigate through that trauma, and then move towards that kind of divine vision. But the way I think of it, like behind every dark night, there's a bright day. And when you orient yourself towards that bright day, there's constantly more and more learning, more and more growth, more and more experiences. But the dark nights, like, they suck. They're not a good experience, but they're a very powerful part of life because they're a gift where you can learn more about yourself. You learn more about your resilience. And I think that bad experiences, I think that painful experiences are some of the most important in your life because they show you kind of who you are. It's easy to be in the good times consistently, but when you're in the bad times, you can really get a sense of who someone is, who their values are, because it kind of boils you down to who you are at the core. And if you have a strong core, you'll be able to get through troubling times. If you have a weak and resilient core, then you might get broken down. And once you hit your lowest point, there's only up from there. How do you build yourself up? What do you gravitate towards? Is the information that you're trying to, like, that you're looking for, it's all out there. You just have to go and kind of naturally be curious. So that's why I think self-awareness is the best way to move forward. Like, know thyself, be thyself. It's the way of life. And when you're in those troubling moments, you're broken down to who you are at the core. And then once you're broken down, or once you can hear your inner voice, as long as you're able to get back to your mindset or what's powerful or important to you, you have the ability to kind of shift and pivot in many different ways and gravitate towards what actually is a compelling vision.
I just want to say, Sam, I know you want to jump in, but Miles, the way you just broke that down for me, if you were looking at me, obviously we were talking about negative energy and bad things arriving and all that, but I had a smile across my face because for the Elevation Nation, like OGs, the people from episode 1, this episode is episode 119. Elevation Nation knows that mental fortitude is everything you just described. It's the idea of being self-aware, knowing your vision, and holding yourself accountable, and using those 3 principles in your life to get you out of the times when it's really crappy and life hits you in the face and you don't know what to do. But it's also there when life's really good. It grounds you, brings you back to that medium space. So when you were just talking about that, I was like, whoa, like, we didn't prep you. We didn't talk to you on this, but like the idea is just like, it's so compelling and powerful. It's this idea of being self-aware. You can't hold self-awareness anywhere. You can't go out, find it. You could read all the books in the entire world about self-awareness, but at the end of the day, it starts with you and taking time to be with yourself. And that's the biggest thing, whether you're in the best moments of your life or the worst moments. So I really appreciated that anecdote.
And I want to take us down a crazy rabbit hole because why not? This is, this is definitely one of our most, I don't know a better term, Miles, unique medicine episodes, maybe a little hippie-ish, but I like it. I'm into that stuff. So I want to keep going. for all of Elevation Nation that's listening is like, Miles is saying bullshit. Because I know some people are. And it's not your fault, Miles. A lot of people listening are like, I can't be that positive. I can't meditate. I can't do all these things, right? And I get it. People go through hard times. Sometimes it doesn't come as naturally to some folks. I understand. Here's my challenge for Elevation Nation. If you don't believe in this law of attraction or this law of positivity that what you put out and what you plant in your mind goes out into the universe, fine. But what I truly think is maybe there's not an actual principle or law, like a law of gravity, that's this law of attraction. Maybe not, maybe yes, I don't know. But what I will say is the human mind can be tricked, whether on purpose or by mistake. Sugar pills in studies, it's an example of the human mind being tricked. And, psychic readers and illusionists, right? Like, your mind can be tricked. I think we all know that as a fact. So why can't we ourselves trick our own mind for our own benefit? Does it matter if you are actually happier from like natural causes, or if you trick yourself in your mindset and your mentality to be happier? Does it matter? Going back to like the sugar pill, does it matter if you got over your cold because you took a sugar pill or because you took medicine, and either way your mind got tricked to then making you better? Like, does it matter how, or do you just care about the results? I don't know. I like went on this tangent where I just find it fascinating of like all the people who don't believe in this stuff, that's fine, but
care about the results.
Yeah, like, do you care?
But I think
care about the results.
I think the core of what we're talking about isn't about any of the results. It's about the idea of just being you and accepting that and just being you in the moment. The reason why it's hard for people is because they want results. They want to grab something. They want to have it on like not their resume, but something that they can show someone. Hey, I meditate every day. And I mean, look at Headspace. It's a great app. It got me into meditating, but it still is like, hey, leaderboard, streak, like check out my streak. I meditated 300 days in a row. But it's at the core not about that. It has nothing to do with that. Like Miles said, it's about figuring out life for yourself. And that's what, there is no end game for that.
Yeah, you meditate not to get good at meditation, but to get good at life. It's interesting that they've gamified Headspace. I didn't even know that. Everything is that instant gratification.
Well, I don't think they gamify with like the sense of like Panitch and me are going head to head. But if I could post to social media, hey, I just did 30 days in a row. And in a sense, that's like, hey, I hit a milestone of 30 and I'm sharing with the world because I have this now quantifiable goal that I can share.
It's almost a good way of holding you accountable too. I think it's a great entry point, Headspace, and it did a really good job of bringing meditation to the world. So because of its popularity, it's now opened up a new topic that people became interested in. But there's tons of modalities and there's tons of niche things that most people haven't figured out. And now there's being like an opening of the kimono of everything related to consciousness, well-being, and just self-growth and hearing your inner voice.
Shout out Andy from Headspace, man. Thank you. Your voice is so soothing, and you've brought meditation to the world with that soothing ass accent. So,
Panitch, I
thanks,
remember
Andy.
the first day you introduced me to meditation. Actually,
yeah,
we were on the beach in Barcelona. You're like, Parker, I found this app, and like I've been doing it. It's like really cool. Like I really like it. Just like, let's just sit in the sand with our feet in the sand, listen to the people around, let the sun beat on our skin, and let's listen to Andy from Headspace. It's just like, let's do it, Sam. Little did I know. I mean, I'm with you. Headspace is, I meditate now because of those moments and, all the times I spent with Andy.
Andy is our generation's Miles's parents who introduced and broke that barrier of meditation. So, they're both one and the same here, teaching the next generation to be more in touch with who they are, their vision, and how to hold themselves accountable through meditation. So I'm with you. I think the more we can take these foreign, outside of our comfort zone concepts and, for lack of a better term, Americanize them to make it a little bit more palatable for our stubborn, strict American generation of thinkers, I think is a good thing because, again, going back to my sushi example, we didn't start by eating sea urchin. We started with the California roll. We started with, let's take it nice and simple here, the California roll, maybe a Philly roll, and now we're getting into some crazy stuff, right? And it's like we have to slowly work our way. If we start with headspace and then we get up to go into the Raj like Miles, at least we're moving in the right direction as a society and as a young generation of people equally lost in our 20s, searching for some more answers. So I love it. I think it's fantastic. I want to make sure we have time for a few more sections here, Miles. One of them being our rapid fire section. So we have a few questions we want to ask you. First thing pops into your head. We haven't prepped you for these. Are you ready, sir?
Let's do it.
All right. I might already know the answer, but I'm not positive. Favorite book of all time?
Think and Grow Rich. It's very similar to The Secret.
Okay.
By who?
Think and Grow Rich is by Napoleon Hill. It came out right around the Depression. So it's like 70, 80 years old.
I love like reading a book that came out like 100 years ago, and it's just like so powerful, and like that person who wrote that, damn, God bless him. Like the fact that something like that, I mean, obviously there's so many books that have lived for many years, but there's so many books today that people recommend, written like last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. How about all the books that were 50 years and plus ago? You know, that's a whole another conversation.
The knowledge is the same.
All right, Miles,
There's
next
a lot of
question.
wisdom.
Exactly. Next question. So in my little research of you before we had the conversation, I saw that you did semester at sea. You also studied you went to boarding school in another country. And I'm assuming you've visited some really cool places in the world. So, rapid fire, what's one of your favorite places in the world and why?
This one probably isn't a surprise. India. I'd go India. I've been there twice, and I'd say I really appreciate India because of the dualities that you see. You see abject poverty, you see extreme wealth, but the people there have just a richness of life. They're very happy. A lot of them are very grounded. Once a lot of them have their basic needs met, I know there's a billion of them, or a billion plus people from India living in India. They just have such spiritual wisdom, such spiritual connection, and there's such a strong community, which allows for such a strong sense of self. And you really notice that when you're in a good vibration within India. You can definitely get lost in some of the streets or whatnot, but I found my way into some really interesting rooms and had a really powerful time my couple times going to India.
It's on my list. Hopefully one day. Hopefully we can get over this pandemic so we all can start traveling a little bit more freely. All right. Last rapid fire for you, Miles. What's one thing that people don't know or wouldn't expect about you?
Don't know or wouldn't expect about me. Okay. It's rapid fire. First thing that comes to your mind. Maybe this is well known for people that know me pretty well, but like I really like sports, and I don't have too many vices. Like I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I'm not addicted to really anything that would be considered bad. But in really liking sports, I got decently into like betting on games, $10, $50, $100. And I've gotten pretty good at sports betting. And I find it just like a fun, interesting passion to just like follow sports teams, follow their kind of confidence levels, how good their teamwork is. It's like a little analogy of leadership watching sports, and having played sports as a kid, I've always enjoyed watching and following teams, but I got into sports betting a couple of years ago and have had like some modest success and just really enjoy it.
All legal, all through Vegas, nothing sketchy going on here. Calm down, anyone listening. But
the government just doesn't want to allow it in some other states. It's just messed up. Like, why? Just why? It's good for the people. It produces taxes for the state. It's good. It's good. People do it anyway with a bookie, legally or illegal, illegally, whatever. Miles, I agree. Sports betting makes the game more interesting. And what's beautiful about it is you put a future bet on a random soccer team that you have no idea, like in the EPL, that they'll finish in the top 5, and they end up doing it, you're following them all season. That's amazing. That's just like fun.
My biggest bet was the Raiders to win more than 7 games, and they won 10 games, and I got paid on it yesterday. So pretty exciting.
There you
go. I
go.
followed them the whole season.
It's fun. All right, Sam.
So
it's the
I think
final
it's time.
section.
I know. I'm excited. So, Elevation Nation, we got our new segment that Parker and I are obsessed with. We hope you guys are loving it too. And I want to remind you all that you too can participate in this segment with Parker and myself and all of our guests on Elevation Nation. Go to our website and feel free to submit your own mental motto to be featured on the podcast, on our social media, on our website, and get exclusive content from Parker and myself. We want to hear from you and your mental mottos. But enough about Elevation Nation's mental mottos. Tonight, our special guest, Miles Robertson, we want to know what your mental motto is. Please enlighten us, sir.
So I loved this thought process, and I was on a flight to Miami yesterday, just looking at all the bright lights and appreciating life. And the thing that resonated most with me, it's very much aligned the idea of self-awareness and the law of attraction, like we already brought up. It's that your thoughts become your reality. So plant good thoughts in your mind.
I love it. It's so spot on with who you are at your core. As one of your friends who knows you pretty well, that is exactly how you live your life. And I think that's what's so fun about this exercise, this mental motto, and why I'm really excited to continue to share our guests and Elevation Nation's mental mottos. Parker and I actually recently came up with ours and announced them to the world. And I think it's just a really lovely way for you to take a step back and think about who you are and how you want to really live your life or be known. And I think by thinking those positive thoughts and planting those seeds in your mind, Miles, you are fulfilling and living and exceeding expectations for your life each and every day. And honestly, inspiring, I think, our generation of 20-something-year-olds, especially 20-something-year-old men, to be in touch with who they are, to be in touch with their emotions, to know that it's okay to do things outside of their comfort zone. So I really appreciate you sharing that mental motto with us and Elevation Nation. It's awesome.
I appreciate you saying that, Sam. And I do think you know me pretty well. And I love the idea of having a mental motto because it gives you kind of a North Star, something to look at, something to go back to, and something to give you a better way to identify yourself and understand yourself.
That's exactly it. That's spot on. Well, fellas, it's been an hour, and Miles, you're in Miami, so you got better things to do than hang out with Parker and myself this evening. So really, I want to thank you again for opening up. I know that's not the easiest thing to do. Maybe for you, it's pretty easy. You're pretty in touch with who you are. But I want to reiterate that the problem Parker and I are trying to solve here with Elevation Nation is feeling lost in your 20s. And I went through a hard time. Parker went through a hard time. Miles, you went through some tough times in your 20s. Elevation Nation, if you're out there listening and you heard this episode, all the positivity and the mindset thoughts that we were sharing, and you're not feeling like that, just know that it is okay. Everyone is in different stages of maturity in life, in happiness, in positivity, and of their 20s. But Parker and myself and our guests like Miles are here to help show you some different ways that you can improve your mindset and help you get through this strange and challenging time that is being a young man or a young woman in your 20s, especially during this pandemic. So, Miles, on behalf of Parker, myself, and Elevation Nation, thank you so much for sharing your story. And Elevation Nation, until next week, peace.